Hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel. Sorry I haven't been on in a while, but I'm here again. So, uh, anyway, excuse me. PSA: get out and vote. It's the most important election of our lifetimes, and you know, I will not go quietly into that dark night. No way. Anyway, because I'm a quote unquote liberal, I'm pretty sure you know who I'm going to vote for. At any rate, um, all the announcements I have for now. Um, and by the way, for Jill, who sometimes trolls me, Jill, by the way, is Jesus' Lord. Sometimes he comes in as rebuke and excuse me. Let me try that again. Rebuke and reprove. Um, Again, I don't mind people trolling as long as they're respectful. I don't care. Okay. So my mods, do not block them as long as they're being respectful. Like I said, I don't care. Um, anyway, for those of you out there who don't know, calling somebody a liberal is pretty much a badge of honor. Unless, of course, that person is not liberal. But anyway, I wear it as a badge of honor. So, Jill, you just might want to rethink that quote unquote um, insult because it's not an insult. Alrighty. So, to get um, tonight's topic, which is Paul and the law. And every time I bring up Paul, I have to say this. I hate Paul. Hated him as a Christian. So, whatever. Um, but today we're going to Romans 2:13, and because I always say context is king, or I might not have said it, but that's the message: is context is king. Context is important. And I've been listening a lot to the rabbis lately. And one rabbi said something that I got to agree with. He said, when you take the text out of context, all you got left is the con. So, yeah, be that as it may. Okay, excuse me. So let me share screen so you know I'm not making anything up. I always want to share my screen with you. Alrighty. Let me make sure you can see that. And you can. So here we go. And this is NIV, by the way. It's not the best version, but I don't think there is a best version if you want to know the truth. Anyway, here goes. Verse 1: You therefore have no excuse, you who pass judgment on someone else for For at whatever point you judge another, you are condemning yourself, because you who pass judgment do the same things. Which, by the way, in this uh, milieu, um, atmosphere, call it whatever you want, um, especially with, yeah, I'm going to get political. This is my channel. I don't care. Especially with people like MAGA. And I think all I'm going to say is that about the climate, okay? They, according to this own verse, they condemn themselves. So, yeah, they don't even read their own book. Shocker. Christians don't even read their own book. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Verse 2. Now we know that God's judgment against those who do such things is based on truth. If you say so. I don't even believe there is a God, but alright. So when you, a mere human being, pass judgment on them and yet do the same things, do you think you will escape God's judgment? Okay, time out. Paul, who is the indisputable author of Romans, wrote in the 50s. The first gospel wasn't written until the 70s, I believe. Okay, so we've got the gospels riffing off of Paul here, because in at least one of the gospels, Jesus is said to have said the same thing. Now, do I think Jesus was a real person? Already gotten into that in plenty of videos past. Go there for my view on that, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. Jesus is said to have said the same thing in at least one gospel. You know, judge not that ye be not judged, for with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. I believe that's Matthew 7:7. I believe. Don't quote me on that. Um, but yeah, Matthew was one of the last gospels to be written. So do without whatever you may. Um, verse 4. Or do you show contempt for the riches of his kindness, forbearance, and patience, not realizing that God's kindness is intended to lead you to repentance? But because of your stubbornness and your unrepentant heart, you are storing up a wrath against yourself for the day of God's wrath, when his righteous judgment will be revealed. Okay, so I gotta ask, what does showing contempt for the riches of his kindness have to do with judging others? I guess he could be saying something along the lines of, um, if you judge others, then you're showing contempt for his kindness, or something. I don't know. I think Paul's brain's addled here, but if I had to find a string of continuity, that would be what it is. Verse 6. God will repay each person according to what they have done. And those are the footnotes there. If you want to go ahead and look those up. I'm not going to be looking them up here, so sue me. All right. Um. So he's saying what it seems like he's saying here is you gotta follow faith with works, but as as far as I can tell, Paul is a faith guy. You know, he the only one that I know of in the New Testament that even brings works into it is James, who is purportedly the brother of Jesus. And considering the New Testament, I'm surprised James made it in, but we'll have to ponder that little chestnut later. But anyway, verse 7, to those who by persistence in doing good seek glory, honor, and immortality, he will give eternal life. Okay, so I gotta just ask, if you're doing good just to seek glory, honor, and immortality, to me, that's not a good person. Okay? If you're doing good just to seek glory, honor, and immortality, you are not a good person. Okay? To me, a good person does good just because they're doing good for good's sake. They don't need anything other than that to do good. Um, anyway, that's just another thing I suppose I have a problem with Paul about. But if you don't, I don't know. I guess I can't change your mind. But anyway, moving on. But for those who are self seeking and who reject the truth and follow evil, there will be wrath and anger. Okay, the problem with this is it's a false dichotomy. Okay. Um, Paul's saying, okay, you're doing good to seek honor and glory. And if you aren't doing good for that, then you're self seeking. Um, no, there are people who do good just because they're good people. I don't know how Paul could have overlooked such a blatantly obvious thing, but whatever. I never accused Paul of being smart. Verse 9, there will be trouble and distress for every human being who does evil. First for the Jew, then for the Gentile. What is it with Paul and the Jews? I think he's got a chip on his shoulder because he was rejected by the Jerusalem church. But anyway, verse 10, but glory, honor, and peace for everyone who does good. Again, there's this false dichotomy, um, good and evil. You know, not everything is good or evil, right? There are shades of gray. This is what's wrong with religious thinking. It's black or white. They don't see any gray. Moving on. Um, but glory, honor, and peace for everyone who does good, first for the Jew, then for the Gentile. See, he doesn't say anything about those who put your trust in Jesus, but those who do good. And then we've got the thing about how do you know what good is? And seeing as how Paul is very antinomian, which is just a fancy way of saying Paul was against the law for the Jews. Um, Lately, I've heard about this movement called the Noahide movement, in which they want to join the Jewish nation, but they don't want to become Jews. They don't want to convert. So they become Noahides, and um, Noahides obey the laws given to Noah after he supposedly came off the ark. So, you know, anyway, um, so those are the laws he could be talking about. I have no clue. Um, you know, he doesn't say what his definition of good and evil are. He just he just thinks everybody's gonna know what his definition of good and evil is, which is another thing against religious people. They think that they are right and everybody else is wrong. And therefore, whatever they think is good, and whatever they think is evil is evil. Not, not so. Not so. Anyway, verse 11. For God does not show favoritism. You wouldn't think it reading Paul, but anyway, moving on. Verse 12. All who sin apart from the law will also perish apart from the law, and all who sin under the law will be judged by the law. Okay. The law he is referring to here is Jewish law. That's what he's talking. He's talking about the 613 commandments that were given, supposedly given to Moses on Mount Sinai. That's what he is talking about. Okay. Another thing I've learned by listening to rabbis, non-Jewish people are not bound by the law. Okay, let me repeat that. Non-Jewish people are not bound by the Jewish law. Only Jews are. And that includes people who have converted to Judaism. So only those specific people are bound by the law. If you're not Jewish, then according to Judaism, you are bound by the Noahide laws, the laws given after Noah supposedly came off the ark. Most of those laws are common sense, okay? The only one I'd say that are not common sense is believe in God. That's not common sense. But the rest of it, murdering, all that stuff, that's common sense. Um, anyway, moving on. Verse 13. For it is not those who hear the law who are righteous in God's sight, but it is those who obey the law who will be declared righteous. And this is the verse I wanted to get to. So, considering Paul is antinomian or anti law, then this verse makes no sense. And it doesn't. It seems like he's for the law whenever it suits him, and he's not for the law whenever it suits him. So it's kind of like, eh, okay, I'll be for the law when it behooves me and against the law when it doesn't behoove me. That's what it that's what he's saying basically. Um Honestly, Paul's a mess. But again, we have the law which pertains to the Jewish law. And again, the only people who are bound by the Jewish law are the Jews. The non Jewish people are not bound by the Jewish law. Verse 14. Indeed, when Gentiles who do not have the law do by nature things required by the law, they are a law for themselves, even though they do not have the law. And here's where Christians get the, oh, you know what's good because it's written on your heart. Do I even need to explain what is wrong with that kind of thinking? I guess I will for, excuse me, oh, excuse me. I guess I will for sake of thoroughness, but no, not everybody agrees on what is good or what is evil. Sometimes it's cultural. Not everybody agrees, and that in and of itself disproves Paul's contention here. Verse 15. They showed that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts, their consciences also bearing witness in their thoughts, sometimes accusing them, and at other times even defending them. And this is how I know that Paul's full of shit. Because no, it's not. No, it is not. Let me ask you something. In the 50s, I believe, there was a tribe in the Amazon called the Yanomamo that their first contact with white man was when this anthropologist went um, to contact them. And that was their first contact with white man. Do you think, yes, they have God, um, a, an inkling of a God, or gods? I'm not really sure about their religion. But at any rate, yeah, they had an inkling of a God, but they really didn't think about it. If you want to know the truth. Um, so anyway, do you think they would agree with Paul on this? Because I don't think so. Verse 16, this will take place on the day when God judges people's secrets through Jesus Christ, as my gospel declares. It's Paul's gospel. That's what he just said. It's his gospel. It's not Jesus's gospel. It's Paul's gospel. You would think that would be a problem for people who base their entire fucking life on Jesus. That they're following Paul's gospel, not Jesus's gospel. Verse 17, now you, if you call yourself a Jew, if you rely on the law and boast in God, if you know his will and approve of what is superior because you are instructed by the law, if you are convinced that you are a guide for the blind, a light for those who are in the dark, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of little children, because you have in the law the embodiment of knowledge and truth, you teach others. Sorry about that. But by the way, yeah, the Jews believe they are a light to the nations. Verse 21. Sorry about that. You then, who teach others, do you not teach yourself? You who preach against stealing, do you steal? You who say that people should not commit adultery, do you commit adultery? You who abhor idols, do you rob temples? You who boast in the law, do you dishonor God by breaking the law? I think Paul's on one of his famous tantrums right here, to be honest with you. As it is written, God's name is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you. No idea what that means. Let's go to the footnote. Isaiah 52:5, see Septuagint. Okay. If I went to those verses, I might be able to have a better idea of what the fuck he's talking about. But I'm not even going to bother because I think it's just one of his tantrums. Verse 25, circumcision has value if you observe the law, but if you break the law, you have become as though you had not been circumcised. No, no. This is one of those things that, okay, this ties in with something else he said in one of his other letters about if you're guilty of breaking one law, then you're guilty of it all, which is not at all um, what happens. You know, if you're guilty of breaking a portion of the law, then you're guilty of breaking that portion of the law. It's not that hard to figure out. Um, so then, if those who are not circumcised keep the law's requirements, will they not be regarded as though they were circumcised? No, because again, non Jews do not have an obligation to keep the law. So, no. Verse 27, the one who is not circumcised physically and yet obeys the law will condemn you who, excuse me, even though you have the written code and circumcision are a lawbreaker. Uh, okay. Jibber jabber. Hey, TV to me. Hey, Trusty 8 Perps. Right, Perps? Yeah, exactly, Perps. That's what they want you to believe. Exactly. So steal a loaf of bread and you're guilty of murder. That's what they want you to believe. It's a religion of hopelessness. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, TV to me. So, but the one thing I have learned listening to the rabbis is the Jewish God is not the Christian God. Now, I'm not saying the Jewish God is much better, but I am saying the Jewish God and the Christian God are not the same God. Well, gee, perps, if we had that written on our hearts, wouldn't we be smashing babies against rocks? There goes my monetization. Oh well. Yeah, Trusty. Exactly. But you know what's really weird? Well, I mean, I guess it's not weird because I just told you I've figured out that listening to the Jewish rabbis that the Jewish God and the Christian God are not the same God. But the Jews don't believe that. The Jews don't believe you're born into sin. They do not believe that. So anyway, let's see if I missed anything up here. Yeah, purple. 613 commandments at 5 per tablet. Does not show favoritism. What was all that about his chosen people? Okay. Um, from what I can gather, purple. Um, and hey, hi, Psy. And these are the rabbis, so they might be sane washing it a bit. Okay. But from what I can gather is the chosen people is not like we're higher and mightier than you are, but that we're the vehicle through which the ultimate redemption will come. And by redemption and salvation, they don't mean spiritual, they mean an actual, literal, physical salvation and redemption. Meaning, when the Messiah comes, then their then all of their woes will be no more, because like everybody's in kumbaya and there's only one religion, which by the way we'll get into this when I get into the major prophets reading the Bible. um but in the Jewish mind, the Messiah will bring peace, worldwide peace. And you know, since there's wars going on, the Messiah hadn't come yet. Hey, freak, how you doing, bro? So um, anyway, there's like a bunch of things the Jewish Messiah is supposed to do, right? Jesus didn't do any of those things, which is why they had to have a, well, he'll come back. Well, in that case, anybody could be the Messiah, you know. So anyway, just a little um, thing to throw in there. But getting back to this bumbling idiot whose name is Paul, a person is not a Jew who is one only outwardly, nor is circumcision merely outward and physical. No, a person is a Jew who is one inwardly, and circumcision is circumcision of the heart by the Spirit, not by the written code. Uh, no, no, not even. Moving on. Such a person's praise is not from other people, but from God. That's the end of that chapter. Yes, purple. Yes. Um, the Messiah is a political leader. He is a political leader and a spiritual leader, but he's also a political leader who um, is supposed to bring peace. Um, and he's mortal. He's from a mommy and a daddy, not a virgin. Now, the virgin stuff comes in because Christianity tries to mesh together um, Greek and Jewish thought. The Messiah is strictly a Jewish thing. You know, the only ones before Christianity who had a concept of a Messiah. Um, is totally Greek. You've got like Hercules and you know the heroes of Greece and all of that. Um, you know, um, and the Son of God and all of that. And it's really interesting because I go to a channel called Tanakh Talk. Um, Let me write that in here. Um, and I asked them questions about Judaism, and they asked me questions about Christianity, and it's fun. I don't believe in Judaism anymore, and I believe in Christianity. But well, the freak, I would say that it's their book. You know, so whatever. Yes, they are capable of misinterpretations. Of course, they are. But I would say they're much more on the money because it is their book than the Christians are. You know, I'm not saying they're right. I honestly, I don't have an opinion on the subject. I don't know whether they're right or not. But anyway, it's kind of fun in there. You know, they know I'm an atheist. Kind of relax. You know, as long as you don't diss them, they don't have any problem with you. You know, um, if you diss them, then yeah, they got a problem with you, or try to convert them, which I don't do. Because I'm an atheist. But anyway, so it's kind of fun in there. You know, and you get the real thing about what the rabbis think their books say, their book, which is the Tanakh, as opposed to what Christians think their book says. The freak, you know what? Um, I don't know. But at 10 a.m. Pacific time, um, the Tanakh Talk channel has Rabbi Toby Singer on, and they take questions. Um, so if you really want to have that answered, um, you can have you can call in. It's a call-in show. They take questions from like anybody, and so at 10 a.m. on Sunday Pacific time, they have this um, call-in show, and they have Rabbi Toby Singer on. Um, this call-in show. So 10 a.m. Sunday, um, to not talk, call in and ask. That's a great question. I'd like to hear the answer to. Um, so, you know, um, and we can hear the answer together. So, you know, but I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. Do the Jews talk about denying Jesus all day? No, not really. Um, but anyway, so um, yeah, thought it. I just thought, what did the Christianity basically hijacked Judaism, if you ask me, and the Jesus movement, which is what it started out as, you know, um, started out Jewish, and then it morphed into something, I don't know. But the Jesus movement was completely Jewish. And then Paul took over and made it into something totally different. So, well, the freak, Muslims accept Jesus as a prophet. They don't accept him as the Son of God, but they do accept him as a prophet. I would beg to differ. That's all I got to say about that, Chad. Thanks for coming. Okay, Chad. Do you think, and I'm just asking, you know, do you think there's anybody in this room that has not heard that before? Most of us are ex Christians. Yep. Quoting the Bible to say the Bible's true. Definition of circular reasoning. Well, I'm glad you don't, Chad. Yeah, well, you know what? I don't care about the Bible either. So I guess we're at a draw, huh? Yeah, how about you show me the Bible's truth first and then we can talk? Yeah, well, prove to me there's a God. Personally, I don't care. I don't know if there's a God and I don't care. So prove to me there's a God first, and then prove to me it's your God, and then we can talk. Good luck with that. Uh, Glad you could drop in, Chad. So glad to have trolls in my chat. No, really, I am. I'm surprised Jill isn't here, to tell you the truth. Pardon me, I'm having allergy problems. Oh, PSA, go vote. I said this at the beginning, but since I got peeps now, I'll go ahead and say it again. Go vote. I ain't gonna say who I'm voting for, but since I'm a since I'm a bleeding heart liberal, I guess you know who I'm voting for. By the way, don't bother me in the least to be labeled a liberal. Don't bother me in the least. Um, okay. Anybody got anything else to say? Anybody want to come in? Because I'm opening up the room. So, uh, hang on and I'll put the link. Let me know if that works, the freak. I might have to do something else. I don't know. It's been a while since I've been on StreamYards. The freak, does that link work? Uh, Thank you. How's it going, the freak?
Hello, it's me. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. I've been getting headache upon headache upon headache. I
Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, how's it going?
Not too bad, just paneling around, just trolling around on the chat, like usual.
You don't troll me, but then again, you know, um, I guess you don't have to troll me, right?
Well, I mean, you're talking, you take this subject seriously for what I can tell. So, I respect that. And,
Yeah,
I feel like anyone who feels like they need answers or want to have discussions, I respect that. So, anyway.
yeah. Your question about Isaiah, I don't know.
Yeah, if you ask them about that, they'll flat out deny it, or they'll say that it's talking about someone else. And to me, it's mind baffling because to me, it's just straight up denial. And there's a lot of passages like this that they will just flat out deny, and it's kind of disheartening. But Jesus talked about a stumbling block, and I think that's a lot of that is what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the way they interpret the Messiah coming back and establishing the kingdom of Israel or the kingdom of heaven or whatever they think it's going to be on earth, where Messiah never dies. I believe that he's immortal. I'm not sure about that. You said he was not mortal, but that he was mortal, but I can't remember. But he's supposed to establish their kingdom on earth, to rule over all people.
Mm-hmm.
But my thinking is, even if that were true, if you were the Messiah himself, and you were looking down on the earth, and you consider the Jewish people to be a stubborn, stiff-necked people, according to Ezekiel 4, what would you do? Establish their kingdom on earth, or kill death for all people first? Because that's essentially what Jesus did.
Uh, I'm not a Jew. I don't know much about Judaism. I just listen to a lot of rabbis. I have gotten more acquainted with Judaism through listening to the rabbis. Um,
Do you think that? Yeah, I listen to a little bit here and there as well, and it seems to me that Judaism is all over the map. Like, you could have literally the same lines of same lines of scripture written by this read by two different rabbis, and they come up with two totally opposite interpretations of the same thing. And so, to me, there's a big disconnect, or clear direction in Judaism, and they're kind of scattered all over the place.
well, you can say that the same thing about Christianity too. I mean, I've been to churches that read this versus this, go to another church, or even the same church with the same preacher, different year, and get a totally different message. So, you know,
Yeah, you're probably right. Probably
I,
right.
I mean, it's so ambiguous that it can mean anything, you know.
I think so. I think you have a good point there. I just find that in Judaism in particular nowadays, it's like it's all over the map. Like, they don't have one clear direction on anything. It starts to almost sound like New Age mysticism at a certain point for all of what they're saying, as opposed to where Christianity will say, look to Jesus. Eventually, when you go there with your heart broken and everything, and you're downtrodden and you're looking for answers, they'll be like, hey, look to Jesus. They'll at least tell you that. But Judaism, it's like, look at the trees and the stars and the mysticism and the big picture and the spirit, and they're really saying a lot of nothing. But that's just the way I'm seeing it.
I got you. Well, I think of Christianity the same way. But, um, DeFreak, are you a Christian?
Yeah, I'm Christian.
Okay. I didn't know. I've seen you in other chat rooms. I just didn't know.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while, Lisa. So, but
Yeah.
I come from a Muslim family. So, but then
Oh,
I,
really?
yeah. So I don't know as much about Judaism as I do like Christianity and Islam. So, but they're all kind of connected to each other. Via Abraham and whatnot. So
Yeah.
it's good to
So,
kind of have a little bit of knowledge of everything,
yeah.
because it is
So,
all kind of derived from the Judaism and the old Hebrew doctrine and stuff. Jesus was Jewish, that whole thing.
hmm tell us a little bit about Islam. Don't they believe the Jewish people, the chosen people, are the Ishmaelites?
Um, There probably are people that do believe that just because they think that their doctrine supersedes, kind of like the replacement theory, the theology of the Christians, over the Jews. They kind of have the same thing over the Christians and the Jews. Since they were the last revelation, that they're the chosen people or whatever, and I hate all of that kind of stuff. To me, it's just a way of manufacturing self-esteem, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Christianity and it's devastating for self esteem. Perps has a question for you.
Hmm.
The freak, but you left the faith you were in as a child at what age?
Um, we were pretty much secular Americans, second generation Americans. Just materialistic. Do good, get a job, American. That kind of consumerism.
Mm-hmm.
But I believed in the general tenets of Islam up until I was about 36, and that's when I sought to know more about Jesus, and I found him. So I
Oh,
was
okay.
like 36. So I wasn't like raised in the church. I didn't know anything about the church culture. Was never part of any kind of group, religion, social group of any sort. But I found a need for wanting to know more, just because there weren't any answers, and I wasn't okay with uh, working my tail off and getting all the knowledge and everything that mankind goes through, and then having it all wasted at the end for no reason. Like, what was the purpose of it all? It was like troubling to me to think about that. So I just started learning about Jesus, and I found out how ignorant I was about him. Actually, I thought I knew, but
Mm.
the more I learned, the more I was intrigued and started praying, and then he actually showed up for me. So,
So, when you say the general tenets, are you talking about the five pillars or is there more?
like the five pillars, but also the cultural parts, like three is not one. There's only one God, not three.
Mm-hmm.
Muhammad is the final prophet. Um, we believe in all the prophets, therefore we're superior. Those kind of things.
Okay. So, I don't think I know all the five pillars. One of them's believing in God, I think. Another's given to charity. Another is fasting during Ramadan. Another is pilgrimage to Mecca.
There's only one God, but there's only one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. That's like one or two, and I'd have to look them up again because it's been so long since I actually
Okay.
researched that or knew that. Yeah, it's been a while. So,
Uh,
five
so
pillars.
Perps asked, your parents never pushed the religion onto you then?
No, they never did. My mom was the Muslim, so get that on my mom's side of the family. My dad was Roman Catholic,
Hmm.
and they both were baby boomers, of course, and they didn't really take to it because their parents did push it on them, and so they wanted us children to kind of make our own decisions on the thing.
Oh, nice. So,
So
like,
we were
yeah,
loosely Muslim because my dad had basically kind of bought into the whole Islam religion.
gotcha. Yeah, I was kind of weird, I guess, in a way, because my mom was deeply brainwashed into evangelical fundamentalism, but my dad was like, do whatever you want, I don't care. In way of religion, he definitely cared in way of morality and stuff like that, but in way of religion, he didn't care.
So like a secular humanist, with morality and ethics type or something.
Yeah, something along those lines. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact he was in the military, and in the military, you get um, exposed to different worldviews. I can a few times, and you know, the Japanese are not like Christian at all, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then he went to Europe, and Europe is increasingly secular. Um, I've heard that in Europe, they can't even fill the cathedrals anymore.
Yeah, I would agree with that. At least from what they're telling us.
Yeah.
United
So,
States is probably 70% secular, really. I think the Pew Research Center, last time I looked, they were like, there was like 30% are, Christian, and even half of those are probably just cultural, quote unquote, cultural Christians. And it also says that 30% of the population also identify as LGBTQ plus.
yeah.
So we're definitely a secular country at this point.
Well, we were always supposed to be a secular country.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
this shit that Maggie's trying to shove down our throats about the church directing the state. No, no. We were always supposed to be a secular country.
I
You
think there
know,
was a point in time, like around maybe even a little bit before World War II, where the Catholic, post Victorian Catholic Church that kind of gained power in the United States really put their rulers down, if you know what I mean. Like, and the people that went to the Catholic schools really got disenfranchised, eventually, because of the kind of the strict rules and the guilt trips and the shame that they would lay on people in order to control them. And it's hard to lay that kind of a spirit on a free people that are American.
yeah. And I think you see that rebellion now, you know, that they're trying to push this agenda that we don't want. And I have to say, it's only a small part of Americans think they can push the rest of us around.
Well,
So,
yeah. I mean, like I say, I think there's really only about 20% at this point of true like Christian population that are going and sitting in the pew on Sunday, doing their Christianese, church culture, social
mhm.
experience with God, and the rest are pretty much secular watching Sunday football.
Well, I was one of those. I was in the church every time it was open, you know, that kind of a thing. I mean, I was deep into it. Um, and then it took a while. It's not like you go to bed one night, you're a Christian, and then the next morning, oops, I just fell out of my Christianity. No, that's not how it works. But I've got to ask you, I have heard the funniest thing. Um, I've heard that Opus Dei is behind the Heritage Foundation. Have you ever heard of that?
Opus Dei. I have never heard of that.
Do you know what Opus Dei is?
I have never heard of that. No.
It's like it's like a Catholic thing that the Catholics are like, oh no, not us. They don't represent us. They're like this small faction of Catholics who are like really radical, like want to turn the clock back.
Interesting. Yeah, I see here on Wikipedia. Is an institution of the Catholic Church that claims to have been initiated in divine inspiration and was founded in 1928 Spain. Catholic priest, blah blah blah. I've actually never heard of this. But I will say about the evangelicals, and their church, and why it's failing, in my opinion, is that they are stuck in this. 1800s revival tent, traveling revival tent, kind of social experience, emotional experience, Christianity, and it's talking about things of the spirit or providing a spiritual experience, and so people get tied to the emotional social experience, have a bad social experience, and end up leaving the church.
Yeah. Huh, that's interesting, Perps. Perps says, according to Gallup, only 20% of Americans attend church weekly, and only a total of 41% attend once a month. That's interesting.
And probably a lot of them identify as Christian just as a cultural kind of a label, not really
Right.
because they believe in Jesus or anything like that, but they just kind of inherited that that what do you call it they kind of inherited that uh, Western civilization label. I don't know exactly how to say it, but I would
Hmm.
say we're a secular country at this point. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
Yeah. So, did you go back to your Catholic roots, or what kind of Christian are you now?
I call myself a Jesus Christ Christianity Christian.
So, you don't go to church?
No, I don't go to church. They usually reject me, and I was surprised to find out about all the different sects. I'm still surprised to find out all about the different sects that there are in Christianity and how they kind of differ, how they're all kind of the same, but how they all kind of like fight with each other and argue, and all that other stuff is like I didn't understand that was like part of the Christian culture until I became Christian, and so I don't really identify with any of that because I wasn't raised in church. I wasn't a culture Christian, so they flat out just usually uh, reject me because I'm not part of the churchanese culture.
Yeah.
But I'm
Oh,
okay with that.
that's pretty sad, if you ask me. I mean, didn't Jesus Christ say to love one another?
Yeah, I think it is an established church doctrine. Once it's kind of established and set in stone, they don't want any threats to that doctrine, and they want to keep their social cohesion. And so, any threat to that, they basically won't accept. There was one little small Assembly of God church that accepted me when I was in Florida for a little while, and I got water baptized there, and that was about the only place that actually accepted me. So,
Oh,
um, you
nice.
know,
You would think they would accept anybody who wants to keep a seat warm.
you would think, but it was hard at first because I was looking for kind of a church home and to belong in the fellowship and all the other blah blah blah. But it hurt when they would reject me, and say, "Well, what do you believe?" And I would tell them what I believe, and I would tell them my testimony and experience, and they were like, "Well, bye," basically. And so it did hurt, but I think it thickened my skin a little bit. So now when people ask me my denomination, I'm like literally, I'm just a Jesus Christ Christianity Christian.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you with that question. I was just, a lot of people say I'm a Christian, and then, well, the next logical question is what denomination, so I didn't mean
Right.
anything by it. I just,
Oh
you
no,
know,
that's fine. My kind of smart ass answer when I say that is basically it's a fancy way of saying non-denominational.
yeah. So have you tried a non denominational church or maybe a Unitarian Universalist church?
Um, Probably, but I think I did. The Unity Church was okay. The Unity Church was okay, but that one is kind of not in my neighborhood or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really, it was just kind of it was kind of it wasn't convenient to like, go there and stuff like that. But eventually the Assembly of God Church, they didn't care what I believed. They didn't really push their strong, hard line doctrine on me, or particulars that they seem to all have, which
Mhm.
it could be as simple as being dunked completely underwater during water baptism, or being kind of half submersed. And it comes down to little stupid things like that, and they make a whole sect out of it. And they weren't really big on pushing that so hard, and so they I felt okay there, and they had some good people. So
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Perps, about Jimmy Carter. He said he was happy to have lived long enough to cast his vote for Kamala Harris. Don't know if you'd heard that one or not, but it made the news. So anyway, so I'm glad you found what you know what you think is right to freak. I'm not gonna say anything. If you know,
no, I
as
know.
as long as you're not hurting anybody else, I don't I don't really care. As long as people aren't hurting others, believe what you want to believe. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, definitely. I if I push anything, I would try to say that being a part of any of the Abrahamic religions is where you want to be, because you probably have a lot better judgment uh, getting into heaven. But if you really want to know that you're going to be in heaven for sure right now, you have to put your faith in Jesus Christ. Other than that, I'm good. And I don't force that on anyone, but that's just what I know from my experience.
Mhm.
And the Christians definitely don't like it when I talk about Islam in the slightest. Like, that will get me expelled from lots of places.
Dude, you know, it's all good here. Said it a
So,
million times. I don't care. You want to talk Islam on this channel, you can talk Islam. Doesn't bother me
it's
in the
cool.
least.
The one thing that always interested me with you was you said that you used to have seizures or health issues or something, and that you actually saw God, but that's what convinced you that he wasn't real. And I could never understand how you could come up with that kind of thinking. Have you thought about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it just for a minute. If I can't, part of TLE or temporal lobe epilepsy is religious visions. Okay, they know this. This is a known side effect of TLE, temporal lobe epilepsy. Okay, so if religious visions are a known side effect of TLE, then how am I supposed to know if it's real or not? Does that make sense?
I think so, but you can't deny that you had the experience, but you are denying that it was God, basically.
Yes.
Okay, so did you have the same? Did you have that same vision or episode or experience more than once, or was it just one time?
No, it was um, more than once. I don't know because I don't really remember. I remember something happened during that. It usually happens at night. Like if I have one of my seizures during the day, it won't happen. But if it happens at night for some odd reason, um, it'll happen then. You know.
Sure. Do you think that if you had the same experience multiple times that would make it more likely or make it less likely?
I think it would make it less likely that I would believe, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be honest with you, that's not the only reason I stopped believing. It just stopped making sense, you know. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
kind of person, you know, I was a young earther. That's what I was taught, you know.
Mm.
And I think they really discredit Christianity in such a way that once you find out that the young earth is hogwash, then everything else comes tumbling down,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, I
So
could
I think,
definitely see that.
yeah, I think they really do a disservice to Christianity by, no, this is the way it has to be. The earth has to be young, you know? Because in Psalms somewhere, I forget where it is exactly, but it says the earth is of old. It says that in the Bible that
Did you
the earth
say
is old.
you said of old or evolved? I could
Oh, of old.
of old. Okay.
Yeah, it says it
Yeah.
directly in the Bible. The earth is
Yeah.
of old.
And it says in like a couple places in the Old Testament, and I think in Peter something, 1 day is 1,000 years or whatever. So um, when you say that, it actually makes me think that maybe there was an internal kind of a subversion of Christianity by using the whole young Earth argument all the time, because it's not it's not something that is set in stone that you can actually prove in the Bible, and it certainly goes against the geological and the fossil records that we have. So it's like it's almost a dividing, subversive whole thing that was brought about onto Christianity, possibly even to destroy it.
Yeah, exactly. And Purpose has a good point here. If you believe the Bible is the inerrant word of God, you find one mistake and that belief is shot. And that's exactly it. That's another reason I stopped believing, is because I was taught the Bible was the inerrant word of God. And then lo and behold, all these mistakes, you know.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's another bad way of teaching Christianity, because anything man touches is going to be corrupted. It doesn't matter what it is. So whether you have transliteration or you have translation kind of gaps or mistakes, there's going to be an error here or there, and it's not going to be infallible. It's not going to be inerrant. There's going to be problems. I say the same thing with the Quran, and same with the Bible. There are slight little inconsistencies, but that doesn't take away from the overall, first of all, message, and the generally the facts that are in both.
So, so Muslims don't believe the Quran is inerrant.
No, they believe that it's perfect. Just like a lot of Christians think that the Bible is perfect. But yet they will point at each other's scripture and say that they're the ones that are not perfect. So, my stance is that they're both, they both have errors, and they're both, not infallible.
Yeah, I think the Muslims kind of did a smart thing, um, in, having the only accepted Quran in Arabic. I think they did a smart thing in that. Now there are translations. I have a translation, um, but I know that's not like the Quran. I can't read Arabic,
I
so
can't either. I can't either. But you know, may, maybe that was good. for in certain aspects, but I think that it's also kind of refuted in the Quran. And so, I don't really hold to that because whenever they try to pull the "well, you don't know Arabic" argument, I could show them a couple verses and be like, "That's a bunk argument anyway." So, like, don't even go there because they're usually just trying to skate out of a different argument that we're talking about anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. But I mean, it probably would help if I read Arabic.
Yeah.
Uh,
And now they're talking about how Arabic is basically a spin-off of Aramaic from Hebrew. And so, like, Arabic isn't really Arabic anymore, and that's, at least that's not the type that they were speaking in the day of Muhammad in the Arabian Peninsula. And so
mhm.
there's subversion, and there's all kinds of rewritten history going on all over the place in all cultures everywhere at this point in time. This is not the information age. This is the misinformation age.
Oh yeah, all you got to do is hop on the internet, and there's misinformation everywhere. Uh, Purple says, one Jewish friend told me the word in Genesis translated to days just meant a period of time, with no indication for the length of time or that all 7 days were the same. Yes, Purple, that is true. In fact, if you look in the translated to English version of Bibles, you'll find the day of the Lord. That's not a 24-hour period. That's a period of time. So
Yeah, and
so even in the Bible itself, day doesn't necessarily mean day.
at this point, I don't think they even know if the day of the Lord is actually Sunday or Saturday. So there's arguments on that. They no one no one can really pin it down, but each side thinks they know what the answer is. So, but I will say that it seems like there's not. It's vague enough not to really give an answer, and it's specific enough to basically judge you and condemn you. I would say the same thing about the whole legal justice system in America or any other country. You have your Supreme Court. Basically, this whole thing is to interpret words and law, and that's exactly what we do with the religious texts as well. So,
Right,
if you're not going to find any hope or contentment in anything that's going on, except for, of course, what I believe in Jesus Christ.
right. And like I said, that's perfectly fine with me, as long as you don't try to shove your religion down my throat. I don't see anything wrong with it.
Um, Gonna ask about how long have you had since it's been since you had that episode where you thought you saw God?
Um, well, I get seizures periodically, even now, so um,
Mm,
it's hard to say. I am on medicine for it,
mm,
so thank goodness for medicine.
yeah.
Otherwise, I remember when I wasn't on medicine, and it was just one. I had to be in the hospital. It was so bad.
Mm,
Uh, they had to put intravenous medicine in me to get me out of the seizures because they were coming one after another, you know, and it was ruining my life.
yeah. Yeah, that would be difficult for sure.
Yeah.
Um, is there ever a state where someone just never comes out of those?
Yeah, it's called SUDEP, sudden death in epilepsy.
Wow. So like your body wouldn't function and it would eventually cease.
Yeah. They don't really know. much about SUDEP, but they think it has something to do with because seizures are an electrical storm in the brain. They think it might travel to the heart
Yeah,
and have an electrical storm in the heart.
yeah, I could see that. I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
If
so
your nervous system is in flux like that, that it controls everything else, then everything else is probably going to be fluxed out too.
yeah, so um, they really don't want people to have seizures one after another.
Right.
So I'm glad they could get me out of that.
So you plan on streaming again more soon here, or just like are you
Yeah,
back, or what's going on?
I am. Like I said, I've been having a lot of headaches. Um, and I have a nerve in my back that I've had to um, lay down on my side with my with the nerve um, like side up, like
Yeah.
the other side down. So
Oh,
it's been really hard for me to stream
yeah.
lately. But yeah, I'm gonna try streaming more.
That's cool. One thing I liked about whenever you're up on panel or streaming, you do look at it, from a practical kind of like standpoint and try to make it make logical sense. And I appreciate that. So, because a lot of it doesn't always make sense. And, just like, just trying to figure out what the heck it's actually saying is, it's part of the experience with the thing.
Yeah, but don't you think it's odd? And this is just a question. I'm not trying to put down your faith or anything, but don't you think it's odd that you can find a verse somewhere that says something and then find another verse somewhere else that says the opposite?
You know, um, I don't think it's that odd. I mean, it's something that you wouldn't want to see, but you also have to, consider the context of the situation because just like in law or in court or in crime or whatever, there's always a situation, kind of a individual, aspect to the whole thing. There's not a cookie cutter type of it's not an NPC cookie cutter kind of video game. It's like a bunch of different factors going into what actually happened in the situation, and that everyone has to testify. And then you hope you can come up with the right, with the right interpretation or the right truth of the matter.
Yeah. Perps, I've got no problem with that. Um, I I am usually free on Wednesday afternoon. Sometimes I'm sleeping. Um, because right now my nerve wakes me up. My I have such a um, problem with my nerve right now. It's the sciatic nerve. I'm having such a problem with it right now that I'm up and down all hours of the night and day,
Mm.
just trying to you know keep that in check. But anyway, hopefully I um, get something for it soon. But
What
anyway,
what I did was my feet will start hurting really bad, and then like my lower back a little bit when I'm doing stuff and just getting older. And I got one of those things on Amazon. It's like a shazutsu or whatever, kind of like little two uh, plastic kind of molds that spin, and they are good for like on your feet or on your back. And I think I got one like $20 or $30 on Amazon. It helps out a lot.
yeah. Um, I use a heating pad for my back. Uh, when I'm not, excuse me, when I'm not in bed, usually have a heating pad to try to, you know, um, keep the pain at bay. But it's if nobody's ever had it, it's you can't really describe the pain.
Um, I think I've had kind of like early symptoms of it. I know that you can't feel. It feels like you're never comfortable, no matter how you lay, no matter how you sit, no matter how like you never feel like comfortable to where it's not uh, bothering you. You know, that's what I remember.
Yeah, it'll go down your leg. I
Uh,
remember I remember when I first got it, I thought it was something with my calf and my foot.
hmm
You know, I didn't know it had anything to do with my back until the pain started going up.
So I see in the description the Romans 2:13. If we, how about we'll read that, go over it, and then I'll jump down.
Sure.
All right.
I'll go ahead and pull up the online Bible again. Yeah, I already went over it, but since I've got you, I thought maybe we can do that again. Romans 2:13, and you can rewatch this from the beginning and
Yeah.
see what I have to say about it. Okay. Uh, on did it? Yeah, it did. All right, just a minute here.
Oh, I
Great.
remembered a question too. When you had that experience with God that you thought was with God, um, how long, like in terms of time, did that like did you see that thing or have that? In other words, was it like just a flash second, or did it seem like a half hour?
I'm not sure. I'm really not. Okay, so there it is. For it is not those who hear the law who are righteous in God's sight, but it is those who obey the law who will be declared righteous. So,
Yeah, I should probably go back and listen to what you said. Because I mean, to
yeah.
me, that seems pretty obvious. You know.
Well, I went through the whole chapter,
All right.
not just Romans 2:13. I went through the whole chapter,
Yeah.
but this out of the blue for Paul because Paul is famously antinomian, meaning he's anti-law. He's like, you don't have to keep the law anymore. For Christ is the end of the law. He said that verbatim. I can't remember where that is,
Yeah, I
but
think
he
you're right. I
verbatim.
can't remember. I can't remember either. That's one of the kind of disadvantages of not being raised in the church and stuff. Is like I don't have it like memory versed out. A lot of Christians do, you know. But I think the
Yeah.
way you said it, I remember hearing it just like the way you said it. So I just don't know where that's at.
Yeah, let me see
And
if this can follow.
I would say for me, I'm on board with that style of Christianity for the most part. Now, I'm not a total free, I call it reckless grace kind of a Christian. But I think that if you're justified in Christ via the Holy Spirit, then you are saved and you're justified. And if you break the law, quote unquote, like if you have some pork or something, it's not going to affect your salvation at that point in time.
Oh, okay. It's Hebrews, and Hebrews is one of the books that we don't know who wrote it. It's often thought to be Paul, but we don't know it's Paul. Says the law is only a shadow of the good things that are coming, not the realities themselves. For this reason, it can never, by the same sacrifices repeated endlessly year after year, make perfect those who draw near to worship. I don't know.
Wait a second. Start at the beginning of that. Yeah.
No,
Um,
it's um, no. There's a verbatim. I know there's verbatim that says um, that Christ is the end of the law.
mhm. But I
Hang
think
on,
even
let
when
me
you
see.
just read this now, it kind of correlated with some chapter in Romans. To me, it's obvious that Paul wrote Hebrews.
Oh, okay. Well, it hasn't been like settled. It's one of the question books,
Yes, you're
but
right.
you know, I mean, you can leave that if you want. Like I said,
I
I don't
think,
really care. Okay,
yeah,
they didn't find, but the version I'm using, because I was raised on the KJV,
yeah.
and the version I'm using might not say Christ is the end of the law, but I remember that as a verbatim.
I think it's in Hebrew somewhere,
Okay,
and in
so
Romans somewhere. Kind of maybe a little bit different, but I mean, he wrote Romans. He's likely to write Hebrews. And I know it's not settled, and they, probably no evidence either way, but just the style and the uh, like you can distinguish a rapper by their style. Like Eminem has his style. Snoop has his style. Like at certain there's certain things and idioms or whatever that kind of synchronize with Paul and Hebrews, in my opinion.
right. Perp says, from what we know, Paul wrote more in the New Testament than anyone else. Might be more accurate to call Christians Paulite. Well,
Maybe.
I once did a show on Christianity or Paulianity because it seems to me that Christians follow Paul more than they follow Jesus. That's just my opinion, though. And you know what they say, opinions are like assholes. Everyone
Yeah.
has one, and most of them stink.
You know what? But I bet you just the fact that that's true, that there are sects of Christianity that are basically just that. They only like. I bet you there's some that only follow the writings of Paul. And that's all that they do, and everything else is bunk. It gets to that level of weirdness and all this stuff.
Yeah, like I know, I I was never around people like this, but I've heard of people like acting crazy, like telltale. had a show not long ago about acting crazy, and they were like it being in the spirit or something. And I'm like, no, that's just acting crazy, you know.
Like a schizophrenic psychopath murderer versus a demon kind of a thing.
No, no, it was like, um, have you ever heard the term being slain in the spirit?
Yes, yes.
And, have you ever, I don't know if you've ever seen Kenneth Copeland or Benny Hinn. Oh, Benny Hinn. Benny
Yeah,
Hinn.
so slaying in the spirit is like when he, throws his finger on you and you basically fall out in the take a nap kind of a spirit thing, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of crazy.
Okay.
Or just screaming at the top of your lungs. Not saying anything, just screaming, you know.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I'm like, what are these people on?
Like they think it might be a manifestation of the Holy Spirit.
But it's not. It's just weird.
Yeah. It's hard to say. Some of it I believe is real. Some of it is probably not real. That's the thing, though. It's like it's just another one of those paradigms that you can't put a finger on. Either side or either anything to say it. You, I find that you can never pin down God.
Yeah,
He always has an out.
right. I remember, I think it was Kenneth Copeland. He had one of his quote unquote healing services, and he flat out knocked someone down who was in a wheelchair.
Ugh.
Like, he put his hands on his forehead and he just pushed him down, and the poor guy just fell over
Wow.
in his wheelchair. And I'm like, that guy should sue him. That's assault.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if he didn't get healed.
Exactly. And like Benny Hinn, when he's hitting people with his jacket, it's like, that's assault. Like, who the hell thinks this is godly?
Well, I think sometimes that stuff is real. I've witnessed it. I've actually experienced that one time, but I think a lot of it is the being raised in church, being a cultural Christian who basically wants to belong to a social group. So
Hmm.
it's become a social emotional experience for them, and they just want to feel like they belong. So they think that it is the Holy Spirit when it's actually just an emotion. Unfortunately.
So you said you experienced something like that. Could you tell us about?
Yeah, there was one of these when I was at the Assembly of God Church. There was one of these who would she would go around to different churches and do like a healing thing and like other things. She had some of the gifts of the Spirit, and I buy into that. I think that they are real. And I went up there for she had a call for something, and I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been
Hmm.
for having a heart to evangelize. I think is probably what it was. Like, so I went up there, prayed, and she touched me on my neck, and I felt like a warm kind of a touch go, from my neck down all the way down to my feet, and it put me on my back. There was something there that caught me, was behind me and caught me, but that's how it felt, and it wasn't something that I did or I controlled because I wasn't even looking at her. I had my eyes closed when she touched me, and I just was on my back. So
Oh,
that's what.
okay.
Yeah, but it wasn't in some mass group where like he waved his shirt on you, and then like the whole crowd half fell apart or something. It was
Gotcha.
like, she came up to me, and she was preaching or whatever, and I was really feeling it because I do like to tell people about Jesus Christ. And if you just like, if you think that you want to be evangelist, whatever, or apologist or whatever she said, come up, whatever, we'll pray, blah blah blah. So I did the whole thing, went up there, and I was just praying, you know um and when she touched me, I felt it from like the what do they call them on either side of your larynx, the jugulars or something, I don't know, like the main arteries or whatever. And I
Carotid.
felt it, yeah, go from there all the way down to, like, to my feet, and it was like just a warm, loving kind of. I just felt like warmth and love and heat, and when I kind of got to, like, again, I was just laying down, in a peaceful manner.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty much it. Um, you know, that was probably a gift of the Holy Spirit to me, and whatnot. But it wasn't as majestic as the original vision that I had from God.
Yeah, well, I've had visions too, so I'm not saying that visions aren't real. I'm just, you know, the brain, we can go to space, but we don't know half what there is to know about the brain. And we know quite a bit about the brain, but we still don't even know half of
Yeah.
there is to know about the brain.
What do you think about the Neuralink stuff?
Um, can you be a bit more specific?
Do you think it's going to be, something that we can map out what's going on and, like, really understand what's going on, or do you think it's going to be bad and, cause? Ever seen that movie Gattaca with
No.
Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman? Basically they do a lot of, like, it's kind of almost like a eugenics of the population. They can determine which traits you're going to have that are either going to be good or bad, and they can genetically modify you to have just the good ones. So,
That's a
you,
bad
you know,
idea. That
uh,
is a bad idea. Because,
yeah,
if you think about it, if you go messing with nature like that, you don't know what you're going to end up with.
yeah. C19 being a prime example.
Like, if you know, if you get pregnant, right, and you know your baby's going to live only hours, and they're going to be in agony in those few hours they are alive, isn't it more merciful to just abort that baby?
That situation, probably so.
Yep. But they're talking about, well, how about we just go ahead and put that part of the genome back in, or whatever, you know, why don't we go ahead and change the genome? Okay, so you've changed the genome of that baby. You have no idea what that's going to do to that kid. You know what I mean?
I do. I think when I think of that, I think of, like, the whole. What do they do? They genetically modify the food. What do they call those? Uh,
GMOs?
GMOs. And at first they were touted as, oh, it's exactly, it's the same, and it's great, and we can do this, and we can do that, and they're resistant to, pesticides, they're resistant to, parasites, and it comes to find out that, yeah, they're, I guess, genetically kind of, right on it, but it seems like they're not nourishing our bodies the way that they thought they would. So there's where the whole organic produce, the whole organic kind of farming, has made another emergence because they think that the GMOs, even could be even just minor little modifications or whatnot. They aren't nourishing our bodies the way that a natural, normal vegetation would. I don't know if you know anything
Well,
about that.
Perps has a good point. Every situation is different, which is why it needs to be decided by the woman and her doctor, not a car dealer in the state capital. Exactly. Exactly.
Oh yeah, well, as far as abortion goes, I'm pro-choice. I hope that
Hmm.
they choose life, but I think it's I don't think it's good. I don't think it's necessarily right, but I don't want to take away anyone's right. So that's where I stand on it, and I would just like to have it so you can't just have it up to like the certain time and be able to do it whenever. Like there should be a cap at a certain point if possible. Even if it's
Well,
not possible,
yeah, there
but
is. There
yeah,
is. Well, I mean, there was. Um, Nobody's saying. I hate when these pro life people say, well, they're having abortions in the ninth month. Nobody is having a goddamn abortion in the ninth month. Nobody.
probably not if they can help it, right? I think that if they were going to do it, the earlier they did it, the better it would be for everybody, and so that's the choice they would make.
Yeah,
Uh,
especially the woman. Especially the woman, you
yeah,
know. But,
uh,
uh, but if anything goes wrong in the ninth month, then it's delivery. That's how you, that's how they relieve the problem. If the problem's in the ninth month, then delivery is the only option. You know, it's not abortion. I don't even know where these pro life people get this shit from, honestly. So, anyway, that's
I'm not
my.
sure. I can't say that I know much about. Like I don't know what's going on in there at all. Like and you hear different information, so I don't have to deal with it per se in that regard. So I don't really know. I'm just ignorant about what's going on. But as far as the car salesman in state capital, the problem is as long as there's public funding for some of these things, you're going to have people giving their opinions. So I agree with the doctor and the woman part, but as long as there's public money flushing around, there's going to be other people's opinions, and we have to accept that.
Oh, you can think whatever you want, just hands off our bodies. Which, I mean, I'm past childbearing. I'm past childbearing age. But I got two nieces, god damn it. And now I've got a great niece. And I don't want them growing up in a world where they're scared to get pregnant. So, you know, that's
Yeah, it's a
my,
natural thing.
yeah. So,
Just
anyway,
all we could do is teach. A lot of these problems that we're having, it starts with education, and if we could actually teach them better and teach them right, um, that's the way to fix a lot of these issues that we're having, in my opinion. Because you're not going to tell someone set in their ways like this is the way it's going to be from now on, because they're just going to rebel and cause problems or whatever hindrance or undermining is wherever they can. Whereas if you actually invest and fix your education system, which is total failing at this point, I think that that's where it starts, because those people will actually be raised right, in theory, be good people and be able to make better decisions. That's the theory, anyway.
yeah. I mean, as long as you're a good person, you know, you can be a Christian and be a shit person. You just can. I'm sorry, but you can.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know a lot of atheists that are good people. You know, So, and a lot of Christians are, it's church at ease, whatever. It's like, well, if you don't believe in Jesus, you're going straight to hell. Well, hell doesn't come until after judgment. So you're not going to just end up in hell. There's going to be a judgment and a trial, before any of that
Mm.
happens. So if you were a righteous person, you may just well be judged righteous and be in heaven. If you catch what I'm saying.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for coming on to Freak. I enjoyed having you on.
Thanks for having me. Good talking with
Yeah.
you. I hope to see you. See you. And a lot of times, you can get heated with people too. I like that too. So
Yeah, I miss Girth Channel.
yeah. Or oh man, I can't believe I can't remember his name. The young guy with the wife, and he's oh my god, why can't I remember his name? But he had some wild panels. Like everyone would go there. Sparkle, Wild Heart, Raging Atheist.
I think you're talking about Girth Streams.
Yeah, yeah, Gurr.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him around in forever. I wonder what's up with him.
No, I think he quit YouTube.
Ah,
I think he went on with something else. But I'm still around. Like I said, I haven't done anything in a while because I've been getting these really bad headaches. But
yeah,
so,
yeah,
um,
it definitely was Gurr. So anyhow, hope to talk to you again soon. Okay,
yeah. Thanks for coming on.
thank you.
See you guys later. Bye.